Hey everybody, Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, coming to you on the Monday evening Q&A with yours truly. I'm going to give a couple minutes for everyone to jump on in the stream. I'm going to feed my fish. I'll be right back. Got unmuted if you want the world to hear you, Mark. There you go. I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, coming to you live from my house just out of Nashville, Tennessee. The Nash, Vegas, any Middle Tennessee reefers in the crowd? If that's you, wave your hand, leave a comment, let me know you're in the Middle Tennessee area. For those of you that are in the Middle Tennessee area, if you missed it, or even in Tennessee, let's expand that. Middle Tennessee, all of Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. This weekend, this Sunday from I believe 10 to 4, out in Lebanon, Tennessee, which is about 20-ish minutes east of Nashville. There is a coral show going on. And saltwateraquarium.com is one of the sponsors of the show. I'll be there walking around. We've got coral vendors coming. So all kinds of goodies. If you're in the Middle Tennessee, expanded Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Mississippi, all that stuff, this weekend happening out in Lebanon, Tennessee. There is a frag swap. Luch says he's from Jersey. You know what, Luch? Why don't you jump out of Jersey? It's still cold up there. It's a beautiful weekend here in Middle Tennessee. Come down. We'll get you some hot chicken. We'll get you some sweet tea. We'll show you some nice southern hospitality, Luch. Come on down. Let me know. Kevin, you're in North Carolina. Just drive, get on 40 West, drive to the gorge. You have no excuse not to be there, Kevin. Let me know you're coming, Kevin, so I don't have to find out where you live and put Wrasses in your tank. Hey, look at that. Someone, Steve, you missed it by a week. Steve said he was here last weekend. You didn't even let me know you were coming, Steve. Wow. Didn't even get an invite. Didn't even get the heads up from one of the guys who's here every week, Steven. You could have gotten an inside look at the tank, but that's cool. If you want to go to Cool Springs Mall and shop, okay, I'll leave it at that. All right. One of our Amish farms. George says he's going to be there. For those of you just tuning in, this weekend, this Sunday, specifically in Lebanon, Tennessee, just east of Nashville, Tennessee, there is a coral show going on. I'll be walking around. Lots of coral there. I got to look for corals. You can tell I'm getting there-ish on fish for my 987-gallon build. I got some work to do on coral. A fair amount of the coral in this tank is actually for clients. As I'm building up their tanks, I'm buying corals for them, and I'm holding them in my tank until it's ready to go in their tank. So I see neat stuff that I want. I'll go ahead and grab it, put it in this tank. This tank is growing coral quite well. So I'll be holding it in this tank for them until they're ready. So Greg, there you go. Greg got a response from the boss. Also, planning ahead, for those of you that like to plan ahead, in mid-May, that's the next month after April, right? Mid-May in Orlando, saltwateraquarium.com, we will have a booth at Reefapalooza Orlando. We will be there. We will have a booth. We'll be selling gear. You can check in with us, meet the staff. Everyone knows me, but if you want to meet everyone else behind the scenes, the owner, Ken, Greg, who answers the phone, we will be there, and we'll be happy to hear about you. You tell us your shopping experience, add questions about your tank. I'll be around as well. Questions about your tank, anything around your tank. This is a question and answer session. It's about 7:04. What? Sorry, my dog is giving me the sad look. Here, Sailor. Come say hello to everyone. Come here. Come here. Come on. Up, 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 up. She doesn't like to jump up. Come here. Come on. Up, up. She's like, what are you doing? Come here. Say hello to everyone. There you go. Say hi. See, she doesn't like to be lifted up. Can you say hello? You're horrible for the camera, Sailor. Come here. We'll get Bo. Ooh. Get Bo. Oh, there you go. This is Bo. These are the other pets in the Callahan family besides the reef tank. Say hi, Bo. He doesn't like being picked up either. Okay, go on. You're going to make too much noise. Brandon wants to know, can I borrow my Skys? Tell you what. Sure, Brandon, you can borrow them. Just get the okay from Neptune Systems. I need a written documentation with an ID, and I'll be happy to send them out to you, Brandon. Ask Neptune. Has your golden retriever jumped out on you? No. No. Perfect. Jordan, look at this. Here's a guy who's been following me for a while. Any fish on the fringe in my 987-gallon tank? Okay. What is fish on the fringe? If you look at the description of a fish, there's usually a line that says reef safe. And then it says sometimes yes, no, or with caution. I prefer to say it's a fish on the fringe, meaning it could be reef safe, but it could not. How do you know? Well, it's on the fringe. They could go either direction. Sometimes it's just a matter of the fish. Sometimes they might eat this type of coral, but not that type of coral. For example, whenever I see an emperor angelfish in a tank, I go, okay, that thing's probably not going to touch SPS, but it's probably going to mow down any zooanthid that you ever have in your tank. Therefore, it's a fish on the fringe. Like, it's kind of reef safe, but not completely reef safe. So it's fish on the fringe. So Jordan, any fish on the fringe in this tank? Per se, yes. My banded angelfish, which is not in the shot right now. So the banded angel is a fish on the fringe. Sometimes they get a little nippy. Now, let's quantify this. There's nipping on coral, and then there's destroying coral. Nipping is often just like, that looks interesting. Boop, I'll take a little nip at it. The coral polyp usually sucks down. The fish might take one more nip, and then they swim off. To me, that's okay. They're curious. Like, they might do that a time or two a day, and then they swim off. To me, I'm like, fine by me. They're not hurting anything. Oh, there you go, Jordan. Other hand. There. God, this is hard to do this backwards. There. Right there, Jordan. So you just swam by. That's the banded angelfish. My bandit, about once a day, I'll see it take a nip at one of the brain corals in my tank. One of those lobos in there. And I'm like, I watch it. Like, it takes a nip. The lobo sucks up a little bit. And I go, okay, no big deal. It nipped once. It's not destroying anything. To me, it's worth having the banded angel because they're really cool. I've always liked that fish. I always wanted one. It doesn't destroy the coral, so I'm okay with it. Now, also let's quantify this. We're dealing with an animal. We're dealing with a fish. Just because I have a good experience with my banded angelfish, if you happen to get one, that doesn't mean that your banded is necessarily going to do the same thing. They're fish. They have personalities. They have different tastes. Your banded may mow down coral where mine doesn't. So if you want to get a fish on the fringe, do some research. A lot of people might say, I haven't had a problem with it. Awesome. If you want to take the risk, just know your experience may be different. Case in point, when I got my blue throat triggerfish in my old 235-gallon tank, didn't have any issues with the blue throats. They didn't touch any coral. They didn't touch any inverts. Great experience. One of my followers said, oh, that's great. I'll go get one. She went out and got a blue throat trigger, put it in her tank, and it instantly mowed down every single cleaner shrimp, every single mobile invertebrate in her tank. My triggerfish didn't do it, but hers did. So it's fish on the fringe, Jordan. That's what it is. Only one in this tank right now is the banded angelfish. The Copperband, maybe that's fish on the fringe. I don't think so. I haven't had a problem with them nipping on anything. There it is. It's just, okay, I give up. I'm not going to, forget it. It's an off night for pointing the finger backwards. All right, so fish on the fringe, I'm okay with it for the most part, and I know that if I do that, it may go bad. I may have to remove that fish or just live with it. I had a client who had a fish on the fringe and it mowed down his meat coral, and he's like, I like the fish more than the coral. I'll give away the coral and keep the fish. Great question. Thanks for chiming in on that one. The golden retriever cross is back. All right, Milton wants to know, can I show the equipment under the tank in the stand? I can. There's really not much to see, Milton. I got a lot of other stuff under here, Milton, because it's storage. Yeah, you can't really see much. There's an Abyss A400, right? Not you. Go on. Get. Go on. Good dog. Right there, Milton. It's in the dark. A400, an Abyss A400 does a closed loop from right down here. It pulls the water from the deep part of the tank and it returns it way over there next to the overflow. So I take the water that's the furthest part from the filtration and I return it closest to the filtration to get it down to get it filtered. Now I also have an Abyss A200 in this section over here. You won't be able to see it. It's actually on the other side of the tank. Two closed loop systems on this tank, an Abyss A400 and an Abyss A200 run the systems. Now, do I need an Abyss A400 in this tank? I don't. However, that 400 is going to act as a backup in case the A400 downstairs goes out, which I've never had an Abyss pump go out, but just in case, all I got to do is take the one out from downstairs, set it aside, come up here, close two valves to close off the closed loop, pull that A400, put it downstairs, and I'm back up and rolling. So that's what's underneath the stand. Other than that, I've got a whole bunch of 3D printing filament and it's storage. There's not a lot underneath here because the filtration is all right underneath me in the fish room. All right, so let's see. Great question there. I love this question because I get it a lot. Old Dana up in Massachusetts, Boston, where I was born. Dana wants to know, I'm thinking about getting a Foxface, but I'm a bit nervous as they're labeled venomous. How venomous are they, like drop dead or a bee sting? All right, Dana, I've never been stung by a lionfish, and let's get this right. They actually don't sting you. They don't like reach out and sting you. You have to like step on them, put your hand on them. You actually have to put your whatever you touch them with through the spine on their dorsal fin. That's where their spines are. So it's not like they're going to hit you with something like with a scorpion or a snake. It's going to bite you and inject you. You have to get onto them and get the spine through your hand or whatever, wherever that you touch them. And look, it takes some effort. I've touched a Foxface spine before and haven't gotten stung. But if you do get stung, how bad is it? I have been told by people that have been stung, it's like a bee sting. It lasts a little bit longer. That's what they said. So I have a Foxface in this tank. I have a magnificent Foxface who's right there, right in the glare there, doing her thing. I like the magnificence over the Foxface lows. That's just a preference thing. I just like the looks better and the colors. Either one of them, Foxfaces are great algae-eating fish. Just like this one's cruising around right there, cruising around, picking at the rocks, always cruising my tank, eating any kind of algae that is fine. So like them, Dana, I'm not worried about getting stuck with the Foxface. When you put it into your tank, you can put it into a vessel or just empty the bag into your tank. You can put it into it, like shoot into a 1 gallon bucket. They have a quick tip on 1 gallon buckets. Here's a hint. They're really useful. Put it in the bucket and then put it in your tank. That way you don't have to worry about netting it or trying to put it in a bag, transport it. But overall, Dana, I'm not concerned. Be cautious with it. And if you do get stung, look, break out your phone and film it real quick. We need like that guy that my son watches on YouTube who always is like getting stung by super venomous stuff. We need that from you, Dana. I'm not going to encourage you to go get stung to get a gift certificate at saltwatercrew.com. That would be unethical. But you know, if you happen to like get in the venom in you, like break out your phone and be like, oh, okay, this is what it's like. I'm curious. All right. Scott says, I love your system. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. It's a work in progress, but I'm certainly enjoying this tank when I'm home. It's nice to be here. All right, Gordon, great question. Using T5s and what are my favorite bulbs? Okay, this tank does not have T5s on it. I've done that in the past. I'll give you a little bit of a hint here. With the Neptune Skys, I don't feel like they need that T5 supplementation. So I'm not using them on this tank. However, I have them on plenty of clients' tanks to give a flatter type of light into the tank. A lot of times with LEDs, it's a harsher type of light because there's some kind of reflector or lens. The T5s add a nice little flat light to it. And let me quantify that. If you're not an SPS head who hasn't had tanks for a lot of years and really know what you're looking for, you're not going to notice. I can take the average hobbyist, put them in a tank that has T5s and LEDs, turn off the T5s before they get there, and they're not going to walk in and be like, you don't have any T5s on this tank. Or if I happen to turn them on, they're not going to be like, oh wow, you just turned on T5s on this tank, I can tell. It's one of those subtle things. Like if you're the 1% of reefers and you really know what you're looking for, then you're going to notice it. It's not going to make this massive gross difference in your tank. So it's just something that is nice to have. So that being said, what bulbs do I like? I like the ATI bulbs. I'm looking around and see if I have any around here, which I don't. I like the Purple Plus and I like the Coral Plus, simply because of how they look. I got plenty of blues in my tank, so I don't need any more blues. The Purple Plus is a purple type of looking light. The Coral Plus is a little whiter with still some blue and purple in there. So I like the Purple Plus and I like the Coral Plus when I'm adding T5s over my tank. Great question on that one. That's all about T5s for me, Gordon. Thanks for the question. All right. Dad Samuel 123. I love these usernames. This is awesome. Low iron glass or standard. What I recommend for a 60-30-30 great dimensions peninsula. All right. So let me say this first, Dad Samuel 123. Don't know your setup. Don't know what kind of space constraints you have. But if you're looking at a 60-30-30 peninsula, there's two things I would do. One, since it's peninsula, I would recommend you go 36 inches wide if you can. The difference between 30 and 36 inches wide, especially on a peninsula, is night and day. Mostly with how the tank feels, but also about your aquascaping. On a 30-inch wide tank, especially with a peninsula tank, all you can really do is stack your rock work in the center because you're going to want to leave some space between the glass and your aquascaping. And on a peninsula tank, where you can view three sides, you're going to want to do that on either side of the rockwork, which leaves you one spine down the center. So if you can do 36 inches wide, you'll be much happier. The other thing I will say is if you can go to 72 inches long instead of the 60, I found that makes a big difference too. 60 is just too close to 48. 72 inches, I found fish really start to act much different. So if you can go to 72 inches long, great. You can go to 36 inches wide as well. Now we're on the money. Low iron glass or standard? Okay, what is it first for those of you that don't know? There's regular glass and there's low iron glass. A low iron glass is more optically clear. Let's quantify this. The difference is subtle. Last time I looked, I think it was like 3% clear. Some people like it because when you're looking at the tank, you don't have that green tinge to the glass. And here's my experience. Here's the real world type of experience with low iron glass. Number one, I don't recommend it because there is a premium price on it for a difference that you can't tell, especially when this tank is full. Can you tell if this tank behind me is low iron glass or not? No. If you were here, could you look at a coral and go, oh, you have low iron glass in your tank, or no, you don't? You can't tell a difference. The only way you can tell is to do this. Is to come down here at the edge of the glass, and if you look down it, it looks really green as you're looking through the glass down the long edge here, through the thickness of the glass. If it's really green, then you know it's low iron. If it's really green, it's not low iron. If it's more of a clearer or whiter look, then it's low iron. Now, one place that I sometimes will consider a low iron tank is in a situation like this, where you're looking through two panes of glass, because this is peninsula, so I'm looking at this pane, and then you have to look through this pane to see the room on the other side. In which case, we're looking through, per se, two pieces of glass. On a standard glass tank, when the tank is empty, you can look at that and you can tell that it's not low iron because it does have a green tinge to it. However, when you fill up the tank, you can't tell. You can't tell a difference. So I don't recommend it. To me, it's not worth it. Now, some of you like the idea of having bragging rights to saying, I have a low iron glass tank. Awesome. If that's you want to pay the premium, look, go for it. Different strokes for different folks. Nothing wrong with that. But if I'm looking at where I want to spend my client's money, I don't want to spend it on low iron. The other thing to keep in mind about low iron glass is it does tend to scratch easier than regular glass. So, great question there, Dad Samuel. Again, if you can go 72, 36, 30, you could be a much happy man. If you got to do 60, 30, 30, still a great tank. You'll still enjoy it. I get all my tanks from Planet Aquariums. Some of you are asking where I get my tanks. Planet Aquariums does all my tanks. They've been in business for a long time. Those are the old oceanic builders. If you've been around saltwater aquariums hobbies long enough, especially if you've ever had to move an oceanic tank, the rule of thumb is bring somebody else because they're heavy, because they're stout SOBs. The same thing with my Planet Aquariums tank. All right, Scott, here we go. Here's a fish question. Love fish questions. I've had a couple fish questions tonight. What is my favorite tang? That's a good question. Okay. Let's go with looks. It's a bunch of guys here. Let's be honest. Let's go for looks first. My favorite is my Achilles Gold Rim Hybrid, which just swam behind the rock. There it is. There. This fish is one hot looking fish. Black body, got yellow top line and bottom line, and then bright orange, sometimes yellow tail. And then it has a nice blue accent along its dorsal fin, which lights up under the LEDs. Love this fish. Love the Maybe I should take a break. The Achilles Gold Rim Hybrid, while I do like the Achilles tang, by the way, this is also an Achilles Gold Rim Hybrid swimming by right there, not a full-blood Achilles. The hybrids get the look of the Achilles with the robustness of the gold rims and combine those things as a hybrid. That's probably my favorite tang from a look standpoint. Now, I have plenty of other ones that I really like. For example, God, forget it. Down there in the drop-off, just coming up the edge there, my blonde Naso tang. I love Naso tangs. My experience with Nasos is they're not jerks. They might get sizable in your tank, but I've yet to see a Naso tang push any other fish around. I take that back. I've seen one push around another Naso tang, but it's more just like shove, the other one shoves the other one back, and then like swim off and they go their separate ways. We're not talking about beating the crap out of each other and trying to kill. So really like the blonde Nasos. They get sizable. I like to buy them smaller, let them grow into the tank. I've had my girl, where'd she go? Right there. Other finger. I don't know why I'm so amused by this. There's my girl. I've had her for, 9 years now. So she came to me when she was about 2 inches, and now she's every bit of 6, if not 7. She started growing again since she's in my tank. Speaking of growing again, and speaking of tangs, let's talk about Tang Police. The old Tang Police. Okay, if you don't know them, what is it? Tang Police. You put a post on a forum or a Facebook group. You're like, hey, I put this tang in my tank. Someone chimes in, that tang is too small for your tank. Kind of a little bit of a term of affection, the Tang Police. What about putting a small tang in a small tank? It's a small fish in a small tank, right? It shouldn't matter. My take on it is that tangs cruise large areas of the reef. When I see them out in the wild, they eat the algae here, they move to the next coral head. So that fish doesn't necessarily know that it's small. And sometimes people say, well, once it gets bigger, I'm going to move it out into another system or I'm going to upgrade. And I'm like, really? You're just magically going to find someone who's going to take the fish and going to either take it or pay you what you want for it? Or if you're going to upgrade, like, you're not going to have some excuse like, I ran out of money or little Jimmy broke her leg, now I can't upgrade. Like, that's all good. That's depending on like best case scenario. But what about worst case scenario where you can't upgrade or no one wants to fish? Then what? So I like to buy fish, especially tangs, small as I can get them, and let them grow into the tank. My blonde naso grew to a certain side of my 235, which was 60 inches long. When I put her in the next tank, which was 8 feet long, she grew some more and then stopped. My 450, she grew and stopped. Now she's in this tank. She started growing again. So let the tank dictate the size of the fish. And overall, I like to put tangs in longer tanks because they like to swim around as opposed to smaller tanks. Especially I don't like to put a small tang in a small tank. Just not a believer in that philosophy. There you go, Scott. There's more for your money on a Monday night. Great question. Dunk. What a great username. Dunk wants to know. Getting some corals from Live Aquaria. Great place. I just placed an order with them today. Do I have to dip them or not before adding them in? My recommendation on coral is dip everything. Everything coral-wise that goes into my tank gets dipped. I don't dip sea anemones, but corals, yes. What do I dip it with? I think I have it. Hang out for a second. Ta-da. Look at this. Straight from saltwateraquarium.com. Still in the protective shipping wrapper, I use Fauna Marin's The Dip. How about that for a name you have to remember? The Dip. This is what I use for dipping my corals. I will also use Two Little Fishies Revive, but mostly I use this stuff. Works really well. It's about a 5-minute dip. You can run it up to 5 minutes. This stuff works great. Yes, Dunk, dip it. I recommend the dip. That's what I use. All right. And if you're wondering where you should get it, then get it there. Saltwateraquarium.com. We probably have it in stock. Adrian says, blessings, Mr. Salt. Mr. Saltwater tank, by the way. Can't claim the whole ocean. Locked in Trinidad. I'm assuming you're locked there, Adrian, because of COVID. Hopefully you're not like locked in prison, but if you're stuck in Trinidad, not a bad place, I would think, to get stuck. Hopefully you can get out to the beach and put your feet in the water. Yeah, it would not be a bad place to get stuck. Wouldn't mind being out by the ocean. I'm completely landlocked here in Tennessee. There's no ocean around other than my tank and my clients' tanks and my Reef Buddies' tanks. Well, and Jack and Bob, if you're watching tonight, how's it going? All right. Bentley wants to know how many fish in the tank. Oh, we ran this. Good question. We ran a contest a couple weeks ago. It was 48, and I've put in, I don't know, another 20. I'm supposed to get another 20 or so maybe tomorrow or the next day coming over from Australia. Haven't heard if that's happening. Let's check the email. Let's see if I've gotten an update about that. A little, no. Okay. Haven't heard if those are coming. So I think I'm up to like 70-ish is how many fish I have in the tank. Great question, Marcus. All right, Marcus wants to know. Back to the fish on the fringe. Love the fish questions tonight, by the way. Yes, we all love coral, but nothing moves around and holds my attention like fish. Marcus wants to know. I'm curious if feeding schedules play a major part with fish on the fringe. If they are hungry, they will definitely find ways to satisfy their hunger, usually not in a good way. Okay, so what about feeding fish on the fringe to try to keep them from doing their nipping or eating other fish or other invertebrate behaviors? Here's my take on that. Number one, I've never been able to feed enough to keep a fish that has a taste for a certain type of coral or invertebrate like a shrimp to keep them from doing it. You just simply can't feed them enough. You can't. I can't be there every hour or every half hour putting food in the tank. The filtration can't handle it. So banking on that, it's never worked for me. And if you're home all the time, that may work, but what happens when you want to go on vacation or you want to go watch a movie? You're gone for the day. Then what? You're like, well, hopefully they don't eat everything. Now you can try to use pellets or automatic feeders. My experience with fish on the fringe, most of them are not interested in pellets. They want big fleshy foods. So it sounds like it should work, Marcus. For me, it's never worked. All right. Oh my gosh. I love this question. Eric, what are my thoughts on acrylic tanks? Too much of a pain to maintain or what? Acrylic tanks. All right. Acrylic tanks are useful when they can do things that glass tanks can't do, like arches, cylinders. Maybe it's really, really, really big. Then I would consider an acrylic tank with the understanding that if you look at it wrong, the thing scratches. Now, I love it when I tell this to acrylic tank makers and acrylic tank owners. They're like, yeah, you can buff it out. I'm like, you can, but that's like saying, I'm just going to go ahead and wreck my car because I can take it to the body shop and fix it. No! Acrylic tanks scratch really, really easy. I found they're very much a pain to maintain. You can't scrape off the coral and algae. It's very easy to scratch them. I've had clients scratch them with their eyeglasses that happen to be in their pocket, their belt buckle. So I don't recommend them. My tanks made by Planet Aquariums, I've never had any of them leak. I have no concerns with getting a glass tank and having it leak. If I had an acrylic tank, I would only do it because it's so big that glass can't get the job done, or it's some kind of weird shape like a cylinder or arches. Eric, if you have a line on an acrylic tank, I would strongly recommend you to rethink it. Go glass. You'll be a happier man. All right, Derek wants to know. Oh, he's thinking about his fish. I love it. I want to put glass tops. Oh, too bad Jerry from Planet Aquariums isn't watching. He loves glass tops. GT Jerry, I want to put a glass top on my 75 due to jumpers and evaporation. Awesome. Like that you want to keep the fish in the tank. Few things are as bad as finding a crispy fish, especially one that was healthy and in your tank. Do I need to worry about a gas exchange? Derek, the answer is very likely not. Yes, it's going to cut down on some gas exchange, but if you have a sump, you have any kind of overflows in the system, you're likely fine. Like even the biocubes, which are completely closed on top, including the back chamber, they don't have a gas exchange issue. Now, you may have a heat issue. That's something you need to think about because of the loss of evaporation, but I'm not worried about gas exchange. Thank you for wanting to keep your fish safe. I love it. All right. Huh. Interesting. All right, Scott. Scott says, I'm trying to start an aquarium program at the VA Medical where I work at, serving vets with MH stressors and alternative therapy. All right, Scott, this is interesting. I've heard about studies that prove that saltwater tanks help people with PTSD and ADD and autism and things like that. Send us some information, sales@saltwateraquarium.com. I want to hear more about it. Maybe we can help you out. Not promising anything, but I'm definitely interested in hearing about your work. And thank you for serving vets. All right. Awesome. Let's see here. It is 7:32. We'll take a couple more questions. Lots of fish questions tonight. Oh, look at this. Tony. Tony's down in Miami Beach. You lucky SOB. Tony says, I'm setting up a 1,500-gallon tank. Nice, 1,500 gallons. Is it safe to use sand from the Atlantic Ocean, Miami Beach area? All right, Tony. Here's the thing about that. You don't know what's in that sand. Now, you can sift it, you can look at it, but if there are any pollutants or types of sand that you don't want, you're not going to know that. So I would not recommend it. I would recommend getting a sand meant for aquariums. It's going to be the right grain size and also give you the look that you want, as opposed to taking it from the ocean. You also don't know what kind of bad critters you might get in it. You can easily replicate the biofauna and biofilms, microfauna, microflora that's in there. So I'm not going to recommend that you take the sand from the ocean and put it in your tank. All right, look at this. Steven's with us every week. Steven, thanks for being with us. Thoughts on Wrasses? Do you repair them up in client builds or just keep males? You have Flame, Splendid Wrasse, the Booties Wrasse, Romboard males currently. Dude, that's a nice collection of Wrasses. I dig it. Do I pair them up? I like to build harems of fish, especially Wrasses. So whenever I can, I try to get a male and a couple females. For example, I actually have a super male. He's just cruising right there. You can't tell in these lights. That's a super male half-banded flasher wrasse. I have two more females in here. They're around. I got 3 females when I put them in the tank, and then one of them switched to the male and is now a super male. There's one of the females. So whenever I can, Stephen, I like to do schools of fish, especially wrasses, and if I can get them all females, it does a couple things for me. One, it saves me some money because the females are usually cheaper. And 2, then very likely that one of them is going to switch to a male, and it's really fun to watch them make that switch. Clients really, really like it. So now in your case, you have all these wrasses already, but they're all males, so adding in females, Okay, so this is when I would use the acclimation box. One, if you have this water volume in your tank to do it, absolutely do it, because as there's some great collections of male wrasses. You get the ladies around them, they're going to flash, they're going to show off, they're going to color up more. Definitely do it. But I would get some of the ladies. I wouldn't just get just a pair of lady flames and then later try to get just a pair of labooed females. I would try to get a couple groups of females at the same time, put them in acclimation boxes, and see what the males do. And they may freak out because it's been a sausage fest for a while, and you put some ladies in there. That's cool, but I want to watch to make sure the males aren't trying to attack them. I want to make sure the other types of wrasses aren't trying to attack those females. I want to give those females the best shot coming in. So put them in the acclimation box, put them in the tank, watch them for a day, see what happens. My other trick with acclimation boxes, Stephen, is I let the fish out after it lights out. I just open the lid, let them swim out on their time. But absolutely, look, put some females in there, but use the acclimation box to make sure that they're going to be safe before you put some really nice females in there and then end up getting beat up. Would love to see your mix there, Stephen. Send me a photo. Would love to see your collection of wrasses because those guys sound really good. All right. Oh, here we go. So let's just switch gears towards the bottom of the show here. Jeff wants to know, what's the best beginner sea anemone? All right, Jeff. Easiest sea anemones to keep are rock flower sea anemones. They're not very big. They're not going to eat your fish. And they're very, very forgiving. They're also very colorful as well. So check out rock flower anemones. Those are really great. Now, bubble tips. The green bubble tips are also hardy. A little more challenging anemone because they can move around. They can cause issues. They can get into a power head and get chopped up. The rock flowers are not as prone to do that. So start with the rock flowers, and then if you want to work your way up, move into the bubble tips. All right, here we go. Let's fire off. Let's get run more question here. All right, let's go back to the fish because that's been the theme tonight, which is totally cool with me. Jawa Bob, is that an Ewok? Is that what your avatar is? It doesn't look like an Ewok. It kind of looks like an Ewok with a smoking gun. What's the best way to keep a Copperband butterfly? You've got a small case of Aiptasia, and I've heard they help. Okay, Jawa. Copperbands can help with Aiptasia. Mine does. I tested him out while he was in my holding tank. I put some rocks in there with Aiptasia to see if he would mow them down. It took him about 3 weeks, but he did. Now again, I got to quantify this. These are fish, they're animals. Just because mine does that doesn't mean that yours will. Can they eat Aiptasia? They can. When I get a Copperband butterfly, I highly, highly, highly recommend two things about them. Number one, you get them from Australia. Number two, you get them preconditioned and pre-quarantined. That way they should already be eating. If they're not going to eat what's in your tank, usually they will in time. I found once they eat well, but it may take them time to start eating your food. But at least they have some body weight on them to make that through. So get one from Australia. Get one that's pre-quarantined condition. Keep in mind there's no guarantee that they are going to eat Aiptasia, especially there's plenty of other food in the tank. But yes, they can help with Aiptasia. Great question there, Jawa. I appreciate it. With that, we'll be back next Monday. I'll be back on location. I'm on the road next Monday doing an install for a repeat client, putting in two 1,000-gallon reef tanks. So I'll be back with you next Monday evening at 7 o'clock Central. With that, thanks everyone for being with us. Thanks for shopping with us. Keep your eyes out this week for an announcement about Thursday, about a little celebration sale, giveaway as well. Keep an eye out for that. We'll give you guys a heads up since you're on the stream with us. Thanks everyone. We'll catch you